Bonjour, chess friends. Today we are talking about the French defense. And I haven't done too many videos strictly on openings. We will show some really nice games, but I figured it was fun to dive into this opening, which can be a little frustrating. Sometimes gets a bad reputation nowadays, but I myself played the French defense as black for many years. And actually some really interesting games, and I'll try to give some ideas on all of that. Basically, after these moves, we officially have the French defense. Usually, white will answer with e4 and d4, taking the center. And now white has a few options. Two moves are possible with the pawn, capture or advance, and two moves are possible with this knight, knight c3 or knight d2. We're going to look at knight c3 today, which is known as the Winawer variation, named after a player. And really, black has three replies, I would say, but two are a little more common. Knight f6 and bishop to b4. Bishop to b4 really becomes the Winawer officially, I believe. And today we're going to look at, after e5 and c5, bishop d2. And there are some sneaky tricks in this variation. The typical move would be a3. And after bishop takes c3, b takes c3. These are usually the characteristics we see in this Winawer. Many high-level games been played in these knight e7, queen g4 type variations. There's room for creativity for both sides, an interesting struggle. But bishop d2, and the point of this is really to get your knight to b5. So how many of us have seen this type of thing amount to an outpost on d6, the black king on the run, and then we just have a winning game or a winning attack? It's so helpful. We also avoid potentially the double pawns. If black were to take this, we can simply take back with the bishop now without as much headache of the double pawns. Plus we have the bishop pair. So it really doesn't help black to take it. Almost all the games go knight e7 and then knight b5. What to do? Already this check is coming. Bishop takes bishop is a check. Queen recaptures. And then in order to avoid this, really black needs to just castle right away. So black does get to castle, but again, white has this really advanced knight. Our queen is out, and it's our turn again. Typical in the French, the center is under siege, so f4 helps to bolster the e5 pawn, and a good space-gaining move. a6 and knight d6, why not? Establishing an outpost, like this knight is a really good way to get off to a good start and claim some sort of advantage in chess. You don't just start off the game winning or attacking. You have to get some passed pawn or outpost or advantage in space or something in order to have the right to attack, so to speak. Okay, c takes d4 is a natural move which is going to come. If you don't do that, at some point, black is going to get their pawn captured. So black takes here, and we don't even waste a move to recapture. That pawn is so weak. Knight f3, knight b to c6. And again, we could capture this pawn, but bishop d3. More in the spirit of the position. And you can almost see the outlines of that Greek gift sacrifice on h7. When you include the knight on d6 here as a part of this attack, it can get really scary. So here is where our trap really starts to take place. Let's go through that again just quickly, as I do want you to actually learn this. So after bishop to b4, the Winawer, e5, c5. a3 is a typical move, but we're looking today at bishop d2, knight e7, knight b5, capture, castles, f4 to strengthen the center, a6, knight d6, outpost, and here we are, f6. I've played dozens of games with the white side of this in blitz. Everybody plays f6 in order to try to really dislodge this beautiful knight. So taking away the defender of it. We just castle here, and the trap is set. It's black's turn. Nearly everyone goes with pawn takes pawn. Let me flip the board over for a moment, and just as black to move, what would you do? It's so tempting to play pawn takes pawn. You just don't want to live with this knight here and work around it. It's just better to try to get rid of it. So let's flip back to the white side of things. Capture. And since this knight is only now attached by the pawn, a knight takes e5. a very sensible looking move. In theory, they're going to take back, and then I take their knight. It has no more defender. If this knight goes off and captures the bishop, for example, then this knight in between can play check. And it seems like everything has worked out for black. But after knight takes knight, now the rooks are also staring at each other. A tense tactical position. Rook takes rook. Rook takes rook. Queen takes that knight back. Now remember, we were already down one pawn. So white is actually down 2 pawns at the moment and sacrifices another piece. Bishop takes h7 is a fantastic move. Boom. Bishop takes h7. And after king takes, queen g5 doesn't immediately make a threat, but it does. This knight, queen, and rook combination is very scary. Let's point out that this rook and bishop are just playing no part. And like I said, many blitz games I've had that go knight f5, queen g6, and king g8. This knight is actually hanging. Rook takes knight is playable due to the pin across the 6th rank. If you play king h8, it's even worse. Knight f7, or even rook takes f5. Anyway, both look incredibly strong. And that's really all she wrote. This game is completely in white's favor. Now, we're going to rewind and see some other games. And actually, black has some other options right here. Let's see a real game. And actually, this was a fantastic game. Look at those scores. Here, white pieces Eugene Perelstein, Grandmaster. Okay, let's see. French defense, knight c3, bishop b4, Winawer, and bishop d2. A very aggressive move. Knight e7, knight b5. Bishop takes, queen takes. This game was played in 2003. Castles to avoid the check. f4, bolster the center. Knight jumps to the outpost. Knight f3. Bishop d3. Love this square for attacking, by the way. Okay, in general. f6, very natural move. Castles kingside. Captures, captures. And here, the best move, black is also Grandmaster, as you can see. He plays the best move, rook takes f3. Now, the story here is not over. More or less, knight takes e5 is a known blunder. That move just, again, gives away after the exchange of rooks. Even if the rooks don't trade, white is still winning. But after the exchange of rooks, like we just said, we have this bishop h7 haymaker. Okay, real game, rook f3. These guys know what they're doing. Rook takes f3. Now knight takes e5, which is hitting that rook, which is hitting the knight. And white comes up with an equally beautiful move, queen f4. Queen f4, amazing. Just threatening the knight, allowing knight takes f3 check. But when we retake, notice that knight is now guarded, right? That was really some sleight of hand. Queen f4, we have a nice battery. This knight appears to be hanging, but then it's checkmate. So the knight is guarded by that tactic. Knight takes, and now the queen holds the knight. Really, really nice detail there. Knight c6. Maybe that is the real mistake of the game, as it allows queen f7 check. That's guarded by the knight. And king h1. I love these quiet moves. That is an attacking move. If you can believe, rook sliding over to the g file immediately has an impact, and checkmate is threatened. Remember, we have this beautiful bishop. The knight is not able to be captured. Queen e8 is checkmate on the next move. And really something special here happening. g6, another mistake. It's so hard to play defense. Bishop takes g6. That's the third brilliancy by white here in the last 5 moves. Just incredible. We had queen f4, king h1, and bishop takes g6. Here, queen e7, trying our best to guard the checkmate that was threatened. Here, queen f4, keeping an eye on the knight. But can't you take this? Let's rewind. Can you take this? Okay, if you take this, simply queen just takes on g6. The king is completely boxed in, another brilliancy. And knight f7 is threatened for checkmate. If queen takes that knight, actually rook g1, notice how safe the white king is. Rook g1, and with this queen and rook combination is just plain checkmate. We're threatening mate here, mate here or mate here. Pretty serious stuff. And reminder, white is down 2 minor pieces here. Okay, let's rewind. And after g6 captures queen e7, queen f4 keeps a lot of the threats. Same type of idea he plays in the game e5. But if you were to capture this, then would come queen h6, king g8, queen takes g6. And in that manner, the rook is going to enter on these open files now. For example, queen e8 and rook g1. So once the rook gets involved, it's just overwhelming, not a fair fight here. Queen, knight, and rook versus just the queen and the open king. So really, really nice stuff. Real game went e5, which appears to be a good move. The bishop is now open. The pawns are all supported. Defense, but no, queen guarding this knight allows this intermezzo check, in between move, and another sacrifice. Bishop takes h7. Just stunning. I mean, this game is one for the ages, actually. Knight takes e5. That's a discovered check. Notice this onslaught happening with just these pieces and this rook looming. Whenever it joins the party, things will really be over. Bishop g6, and there it is, rook e1. Guarding the knight and introducing the rook to the attack. Here, actually, white is up a pawn. Unbelievable. After all of that, white is up a pawn. Okay, here's the finale of the game. It goes king c7. That's guarded by the queen. Queen e5, not allowing the king to scoot back to safety, and you don't survive out this far. Bishop e4, I love that move. Just guards the pawn, threatens the king. Our king, again, very safe in this battle. King b6 and queen takes d4 check. Again, not allowing that king to escape back to the back rank. The rook never moved. The bishop never moved. Here, black resigned. A really impressive game coming out of this French variation. Let's keep moving here. Here, 2 strong players. In fact, black, I've clashed with myself on a few occasions. I used to live here in the Dallas area. Let's look at this from the black side. Bishop d2, knight b5, capture, capture. Does it look familiar? It's upside down, but it's the same variation. Here we saw f6. Remember, how tempting is f6? You can feel the danger here, and f6 at least tries to counter in the center, and again, dislodge this knight. Capture, capture, rook takes f3. This is really the best move. Like we said, the trap comes after knight takes e5, which is a very common response at the lower levels. These are, again, Grandmasters. Bishop takes h7 here. The last game, remember, went rook takes f3. But this attack just doesn't cut it. Maybe white had some memory of this or forgot that you can take this with the rook or pawn, actually, and just allow knight takes c5, almost copying the attack that we have now learned, but completely mixing up the move order. Remember, our successful attack comes after knight e5, and then bishop takes h7. Queen g5, white completely winning here. But white here in this position, bishop takes h7 isn't correct. Grandmasters here. Queen g5, but it's just not to be. Knight takes e5, brilliant defense by black here. And all of this, it just isn't quite right. In other words, black has plenty of pieces to defend. Here, it looks so scary, but look at our knight guards h8 for checkmate. The knights guarding each other, our queen, and actually there's just more defenders than there are attackers. Knight e5. Knight f4, hitting the queen again. Active defense. Queen f6, please trade with me. Again, we actually have 2 pieces and a pawn for the rook. Black is winning in material after all those sacrifices. Knight e g6, rook d1, e5, and white resigns. White is completely losing, not even an aggressive move to make. These pawns in the center are a dream, and now the bishop is woken up not long before the rook enters, and this one's over. Just 23 moves. Let's keep going here with a game from 2024, just last month, which was played in the Title Tuesday event. But Grandmaster from the previous generations here, Jan Elvest, very strong, played in the United States, and I believe Estonia is home country. Here, knight b5. So this is as modern as we get here. f4, and knight b takes d4. A much more positional approach, okay? Last time we've seen bishop d3, and we're going for these attacks, and then the knight jumps into the outpost, but knight takes. And this is an interesting learning moment where you can look at chess in so many different ways. An older grandmaster just says, you know what? We have a good pawn structure. This pawn is far forward. Our king is safe. We can develop. Why go for all this crazy mess? Black has to deal with this French bishop, which is always difficult to develop. And the game just goes on. Very interesting. Queen e3, castles kingside. And again, this clearly a more positional approach. Okay, I don't think big sacrifices coming anymore. We've exchanged so many pieces. But actually white, after the move f5, remember this is an online blitz game, that white actually generates a pretty serious attack. Rook takes f5. Never mind the question marks here. I think this is all well and good. Rook f3, rook e1. All the white pieces are playing, concentrated in the center. Rook g3, rook f1. Nice open files. You can feel something is brewing here. Queen b4, h4, queen b2. Getting the king safe. I've mentioned that a few times today, a hallmark of strong players. And here, the Grandmaster uncorks something really nice. Rook f6, a la Bobby Fischer in his famous game versus Benko. But capturing immediately leads to checkmate, so that is very easy to see. In the meantime, we are threatening. Rook or even queen takes. Let's just play a move. Queen takes, pawn takes, and rook takes. h6 is checkmate. You could have done that in either order. So king h7 at least guards against the checkmate. Knight takes e6, and rook takes g7. A nice finish to this one, a brilliancy, and the checkmate is pretty easy from here. Only legal move is king g8, queen g5. A little tiptoe. There's a few checks here, but you could see the king getting a little escape route. I'm sure white is still winning, but just the easiest way is clearly queen g5. They have to move to the h-file, and then checkmate on the very next move. Wow, a nice positional approach, some beautiful attacks, and I think this variation, bishop d2, can be a good weapon. Watch out for those traps, especially if you are under 2,000 or under 2,200, that type of level. As you get to the higher levels, you're going to run into some strong players that obviously know this, but it can still be a good surprise. But below 2,000, this could be your real every game weapon against the French, and knight b5 is a pretty serious problem. I just want to again mention if someone plays a move like knight c6, then almost already white is ensuring this knight getting here. So some nice variations to look at, but something maybe you weren't aware of, as so many games and classic games go a3. So hope that helps. If you do like the opening variations and some tricks and traps, definitely let me know. I have seen many of them over the years and would love to share them with you all. Thanks again, and we'll see you all next time.